Hello, I'm Jonathan Steele. I work regularly for the website Middle East Eye. That's I as in I. I've been asked to talk to you about the subject Middle East, peace process or the risk of a new world war. It's an important subject and it's a great opportunity for me to talk to you. I'm sorry I can't come to you in person and attend the whole conference, but it's a pleasure to be here anyway. So, risk of a new world war, I think it's almost minimal. There is no danger of that. But there is the danger of a very serious regional war. The Middle East is in a condition of extreme turbulence and uncertainty. Never have there been so many wars going on at the same time. We have wars in Syria, in Yemen, and in Libya. The war in Syria is slowly winding down. But millions of people have been made homeless and 500,000 have been killed. In Yemen, peace talks are underway in Sweden. But the war is still causing the world's worst humanitarian crisis. And even if the Swedish talks are successful, huge amounts of food aid will be needed to be sent in as quickly as possible to try to avert mass famine. Then there's the almost forgotten war in Libya. So with 3 wars going on, it may seem unnecessarily pessimistic for me to draw your attention to the risk of a new war breaking out. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the strong possibility of an attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran. It will be provoked and carried out by the new triangular alliance of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The governments of these 3 states have joined together in demonizing Iran in all their public statements. The aim is to prepare the ground for justifying airstrikes on Iranian targets, or even an all-out invasion of Iran. The US has already imposed economic sanctions and has started an economic war. Is the trigger for a military war, but the alliance is doing its best to create one now. It's almost 20 years since Israel started to talk up the alleged threat which Iran posed to international peace. Initially, it was a cynical trick to try to divert attention away from the unresolved dispute between Israel and the Palestinians, and to reduce the pressure on Israel at the United Nations for an end to Israel's illegal occupation of Palestinian land. But what began as a tactic soon became a long-term strategy. Israel spread the word that Iran was secretly developing a nuclear weapon. The first target of this propaganda campaign was the United States government in Washington. Israel wanted Washington, its powerful ally and its most important international supporter, to take the so-called Iranian threat seriously. When the US made war on Iraq in 2003 in order to destroy what they claimed was Saddam Hussein's secret nuclear weapons program, Israeli officials told reporters that America had launched the wrong war. They should have invaded Iran, not Iraq. Throughout the presidency of George W. Bush, Israel kept open the possibility of unilateral airstrikes on the various facilities in Iran, which they claimed were being used to develop nuclear weapons. When Obama came to the White House in 2009, Israel's strategy was forced to pause. Obama preferred negotiations to war, and it was no secret that Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, was bitterly disappointed when in 2015 Obama, along with Russia, China, Britain, France, Germany and the European Union, made a deal with Iran for a large cut in their number of centrifuges and full inspection of their nuclear research program. The pressure against Iran was massively reduced. So Netanyahu added a new propaganda element to his anti-Iranian campaign. He and his officials began to argue that Iran posed a threat not just to Israel, but to the whole of the Gulf region. Israel kept stressing that Iran was led by clerics of the Shia faith of Islam, and they were allegedly natural enemies of Sunni Islam. Netanyahu's strategy was clever, since it had the potential of opening the way to an alliance between Israel and the conservative Sunni Arab states. If the first part of the anti-Iranian strategy had been to marginalize the Palestinian issue and get Arab governments to stop putting diplomatic pressure on Israel and thereby become essentially neutral, the new part was to get them actively to join Israel as allies against a common enemy, Iran. Netanyahu's task became easier when Saudi Arabia appointed a new leader, Mohammed bin Salman. He wanted to replace the cautious, low-key diplomacy of his predecessors with a much more energetic and adventurous foreign policy. The ambition was to demonstrate that Saudi Arabia was the dominant power in the Gulf region, more important than any other state. First came Salman's attack on Yemen in March 2015. He claimed it was designed to protect Yemen from Iranian interference. But most outside analysts, including the US CIA, agree that Iranian interference in Yemen was minimal before the Saudi intervention. It has only become bigger subsequently. So Mohammed bin Salman has provoked exactly what he claimed he wanted to prevent. Next came his campaign to put pressure on his fellow Gulf state Qatar, which has been subjected to a Saudi economic blockade now. Why? Simply because Qatar supports the Muslim Brotherhood, the organization of political Islamists whom the Saudis hate. The Muslim Brotherhood offer the prospect of political Islam coming to power through democratic means by creating political parties and holding elections, something which the repressive Saudi monarchy cannot accept. Donald Trump's arrival in the White House has given a new and dangerous impetus to Netanyahu's and bin Salman's strategy. Trump is surrounded by neoconservatives like John Bolton and General Jim Mattis, the Defense Secretary, who have been trying to find reasons to attack Iran for several years. Now they think they have a real chance. They push out the propaganda message that Iran is the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism, although the truth is that Saudi Arabia has done much more than Iran to fuel Islamic terror across the region. They claim that Iran's activity in Iraq is malign and aggressive, although the truth is that it was the American invasion of Iraq in 2003 which did most damage in destabilizing Iraq. They argue that Iran's military help to the Syrian government in the war in Syria is illegitimate, although the truth is that Iran was invited by a sovereign government in Damascus, while the presence of American special forces in northeastern Syria is illegal because it has no United Nations backing. In conclusion, let me repeat that we now have a triangular alliance between the United States, which has the world's largest armed forces, Israel, which is nuclear armed and has the region's most powerful army, and Saudi Arabia, which is armed with sophisticated US and British weapons, aircraft, missiles, drones, and other weapons. At various times, these countries have all invaded other countries in the region. The US invaded Iraq, Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen, Israel invaded and still occupies millions of hectares of Palestinian land. Yet these three states are now preparing to assault a country, Iran, which in its 40 years as an Islamic republic has never invaded another country. To describe Iran as a threat to its neighbours is therefore simply grotesque. What does all this mean for us here as international relations analysts? I believe we have a duty to make our voices heard. In whatever forums where we have influence, we have to expose and reject the anti-Iranian propaganda. We must give warning of the preparations for war which are already underway. We have to call for common sense to prevail. Thank you for your attention.